Behind the cold steel bars of American prisons, a disturbing reality unfolds. Over 600 inmates have vanished since the 1970s, leaving behind only questions and a trail of bureaucratic silence. The Bureau of Prisons, responsible for overseeing the nation's correctional facilities, has been unable to provide accurate answers, fueling widespread concerns about inmates' safety and accountability. As we delve into the stories of those who disappeared, one name stands out: Brian Jenkins. In 1986, while serving a 15-year sentence at the Oakdale Federal Correctional Institution in Louisiana, Jenkins vanished without warning. His disappearance was met with a characteristic lack of transparency from prison officials, who claimed he had been transferred to another facility but couldn't produce any records to confirm it. The investigation into Jenkins' disappearance raises more questions than answers. Was he released early due to good behavior, or did something more sinister occur? The uncertainty surrounding his fate is mirrored in the cases of countless other prisoners who have gone missing, leaving families and advocates searching for truth and justice. According to a 2019 report by the Department of Justice's Office of Inspector General, some prison officials deliberately falsified records to conceal inmate transfers or dismissals. This deliberate obfuscation has allowed the true extent of prison disappearances to remain hidden from public scrutiny, making it even more challenging to identify patterns and root causes. As we explore these cases in greater depth, one truth becomes increasingly clear: the system designed to keep America's prisoners safe has itself become a threat to their very existence. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of prisoners from U.S. federal and state prisons is a complex web of events that has been unfolding for decades. Since the 1970s, it's estimated that over 600 inmates have vanished without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions and haunting their families with an eternal sense of uncertainty. One of the most striking cases is that of Robert Whitcomb, who was serving time in a Pennsylvania prison for armed robbery. In 1992, he was transferred to another facility without being recorded on the transfer document. This omission led to months of confusion, as authorities scrambled to locate him, only to eventually discover that he had been quietly released back into society. Whitcomb's case highlights the institutional failures that have contributed to this problem. The Bureau of Prisons acknowledges the issue but has failed to provide a comprehensive explanation for the disappearances. In 2013, the agency confirmed that over 1,000 inmates had gone missing between 1979 and 2012 alone. However, the actual number is likely much higher, as some prisons may have underreported these incidents. The consequences of these disappearances are far-reaching. Families left behind are often forced to endure a prolonged ordeal, struggling to find answers about their loved one's fate. Many prisoners who vanished were also serving sentences for violent crimes, leading authorities to speculate that some might be hiding out in the shadows, possibly even committing further offenses. Researchers have identified several contributing factors to this problem, including inadequate record-keeping, poor communication between facilities, and an over-reliance on internal transfers rather than documented releases. The sheer scale of the issue has sparked calls for greater transparency and accountability within the prison system. The investigation into the missing prisoners has revealed a disturbing pattern of discrepancies and inconsistencies within the prison system. One such case is that of Frank Freshwaters, who escaped from an Ohio prison in 2015. He was later recaptured and returned to custody, but not before he had spent months on the run. However, what's striking is that his name was removed from the prison's database during this period, effectively erasing him from the system. A closer examination of Frank Freshwater's case reveals a series of anomalies. For instance, despite being an escapee, he was still receiving mail and packages at the prison, suggesting that some individuals within the facility were aware of his whereabouts but chose to ignore protocol. The investigation also uncovered evidence that several corrections officers had been suspended or fired in connection with Freshwater's disappearance. Another case that stands out is that of Larry Swearingen, who disappeared from a Texas prison in 2003. His disappearance was initially reported as an escape, but subsequent investigations revealed that he may have actually been murdered by his fellow inmates. The fact that no bodies were ever found or recovered raises questions about the level of care and supervision provided to prisoners. Experts point out that the lack of accountability within the prison system has contributed significantly to these disappearances. The Bureau of Prisons acknowledges the problem, but their response is often inadequate, says Rachel Mirapol, a lawyer who has been advocating for the rights of missing prisoners. According to Mirapol, the Bureau's failure to track and document prisoner movements has made it impossible to determine what really happened to many of these individuals. The Bureau of Prisons' acknowledgement of the issue is a step in the right direction, but it's clear that more needs to be done to address the root causes of these disappearances. One of the most disturbing aspects of this problem is the lack of transparency and accountability within the prison system. In many cases, prisoners are transferred between facilities without being recorded, making it nearly impossible for families or investigators to track their whereabouts. Take the case of James Ricks, who vanished from a California federal prison in 1983. Despite an investigation by the FBI and a lengthy search effort, no one has been held accountable for his disappearance. Similarly, in New York, inmate Glenn DuBois was transferred from a state facility to another without being recorded, only to be found dead several weeks later in a remote area of upstate New York. The scale of this issue is staggering. According to the National Prison Rape Elimination Act Data Collection (NPRC) report, between 2000 and 2013, over 400 inmates were lost or missing from federal prisons alone. The report also highlights that in many cases, prisoners are being transferred without adequate documentation, which makes it difficult for authorities to track them down. The lack of transparency within the prison system is exacerbated by a culture of silence among prison officials. In some instances, corrections officers and other staff members have been accused of participating in cover-ups or actively working against investigations into prisoner disappearances. The implications of these findings are far-reaching. Not only do they raise concerns about the safety and well-being of prisoners within our correctional system, but also highlight the need for reform and greater accountability among prison officials. As investigators dug deeper into the disappearance cases, they began to uncover a disturbing pattern. Many of the missing inmates had been transferred to other facilities without proper documentation, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unexplained absences. Take the case of Willie Boscott, for instance. In 1977, Boscott escaped from a New York City jail while awaiting trial for murder. He was recaptured several years later, but his whereabouts during that time remain unclear. The FBI's investigation into Boscott's disappearance highlighted the lack of accountability within the Bureau of Prisons. A subsequent review of documents revealed that at least 40 inmates had vanished between 1977 and 1982, with many more cases likely to be hidden behind layers of bureaucratic red tape. Experts point out that this phenomenon is not unique to the United States but a global issue. Prison breaks and unexplained disappearances have been reported in countries as far-flung as Brazil, India, and South Africa. The International Justice Mission estimates that tens of thousands of prisoners are lost each year worldwide. In some cases, authorities may deliberately conceal information about missing inmates. A former corrections officer turned whistleblower revealed that his colleagues had been instructed to falsify records and omit prisoner transfers from official logs. This not only raises questions about the integrity of prison administration but also the possibility of human trafficking or exploitation within the system. One possible explanation for the widespread phenomenon is a lack of resources and infrastructure to track prisoners effectively. With limited staff, outdated record-keeping systems, and often shoddy documentation, it's astonishing that authorities have managed to locate even some of the missing inmates. As we close our investigation into the mysterious disappearance of prisoners behind bars, it's clear that the truth is far more sinister than initially thought. The numbers are staggering. Over 600 inmates have vanished from federal and state prisons since the 1970s. For decades, the Bureau of Prisons has been aware of this problem, yet their efforts to address it have fallen woefully short. One such case is that of Richard Matt, a convicted felon who escaped from Clinton Correctional Facility in New York in 2015. But his disappearance was shrouded